Bubble tea, a new favorite for many people in the world. Do you know where it's from? Tender and juicy fried chicken. Do you know where it's from? Taiwan has a very high density of nearly 3,000 franchise brands that are doing very well and cover almost everything you can think of. Food franchises play a big part in it, with almost 17,000 chain stores in Taiwan and 150 brands already setting foot in overseas markets. Franchise stores from Taiwan could be seen in many countries, no matter where you are, from settling in Southeast Asia to creating the Taiwan phenomenon in Japan and Korea. The next step is reaching out to Europe and the United States, so that the brands from Taiwan could also be seen in some of the hottest travel destinations. Taiwan's franchises are also getting smarter by introducing new technologies and equipment. A variety of unmanned commercial services are on the rise. You can start a business and create revenue in your country by joining Taiwan franchise brands. Want to become franchises of Taiwan franchise brands? TAITRA can help you. In recent years, TAITRA has held many events to help connect Taiwan's franchise brands with overseas markets. In addition to helping foreign buyers better understand the business model of Taiwanese franchise companies, the latest industry trends, and emerging business opportunities, integrated online and offline marketing campaigns are also launched to show the diversity of Taiwan's multifaceted franchise industry. In the future, you are about to see a lot more from Taiwan's franchise brands expanding their reach overseas. TAITRA is there for you, wherever you are in the world. What are you still waiting for? Contact us soon!
From Taiwan, US, and Canada. Welcome to Taiwanese Brands Entering North America webinar. I'm the host of the day, Lydia from TAITRA. At the beginning of the video, that's TAITRA's promo video of Taiwanese F&B franchise brands for buyers to learn quickly the quality of Taiwanese brands and with TAITRA to explore opportunities worldwide. The agenda of the day include, firstly, I will present the F&B franchise market landscape in the US. Next is Chairman of Make-Wish, Tseng, and the Global Business Development Yummy Town, Vice President Stephanie Grills, to share their stories and experiences. Make-Wish is Taiwanese fruit tea brand. Mr. Wish has 30 stores. Yummy Town is featured brand HAPPYLEMON also has 60 stores in the US as well. They successfully entered the market in the America and share their brilliant stories with us. Also for companies aiming to enter the US to better understand the related laws and taxes in the US, we also have Chen, attorney of Green Maple Law Group, Kevin Ye, CEO of Ye Associates, to help us to see issues with regulations and taxes for F&B franchise companies to enter the US market. Also, please remember to fill out the questionnaire and share your feedbacks. And we'll send slides of landscape reports, regulations, and counting to you. For more information about the event, please check the description below. The Taiwanese franchise brand this year online trade meeting for North America is now available with 12 quality Taiwanese companies. Buyers from US and Canada are welcome to sign up for a one-on-one trade meeting with the brands. For Taiwanese F&B franchise brands, welcome to reach us or fill out the questionnaire. We will assisting you. To begin with, it is I, Lydia from TAITRA, to share with you the food and beverage franchise market landscape in the US. It will be divided into three parts. First will be US F&B franchise market and the present and the future outlook. Next is Taiwanese F&B franchise brand in the US. Three cases will be shared: Xingfu Tang, Gongcha, and Meat Fresh, and means to expansion and resources of TAITRA facilitate the expansion worldwide. First of all, it's the F&B franchise market in the US. There are 333 million people in the US, ranked third place in the world, preceded by India and China. The nominal GDP is $22 trillion, ranked number one in the world. What about the GDP per capita? It's $68,000, ranked number five in the world. Let's look at the landscape of franchise business in the US first, including real estate, personal services, business services, retailing, quick service restaurants, full service restaurants. We can see here, according to the International Franchise Association, in 2020, the overall economic output of franchise business is $670 billion. It's 15% smaller than the previous year due to the pandemic, yet it accounts for 3% of the total GDP of the US. Next is the projection for 2021. First is number of establishments grow to 780,000, employment 8.25 million, economic output $780 billion, and franchise business and quick service restaurants and full service restaurants combined account for 28% of the total establishments, 58% of employment, 42% of economic output. Evidently, restaurants account for a huge share in franchise business. Let's look at the status of USB F&B industry, either in sales or jobs in the future. Both are growing till 2030. The sales in 2018 is about $833 billion, which will grow by 44% to $1.2 trillion in 2030. As for the jobs, will grow from 15 million in 2018 to 17 million in 2030, which is 13.9% of growth. And here's the global restaurant ranking. Now that the modern F&B franchise brands in the US have an early start and are more mature, top 20 in the world, there are 17 brands are from the US. The top 5, including Starbucks, McDonald's, KFC, Subway, and Domino's. I bet they're no stranger to you. And Taco Bell in number 6 and AAA in number 13. And so Mexican cuisine, they're getting more popular. And number 14, Chick-fil-A. We can see that the first ladder, it looks like a chicken. It features products of chicken, including chicken sandwich, chicken burger, chicken biscuits, chicken salad, and so on. Next is top 10 top sellers of the quick service restaurants. We can see the story of fast food, burgers, chicken items like Chick-fil-A, and Mexican food. Here's the 10 trends in food service industry. There are streamlined menus, meal subscription, and healthy and diet-specific food. Streamlined menus means that the items on the menu are cut short. What are the benefits? It helps restaurants to reduce the pressure of inventory and reduce their waste. Also, it saves manpower required for meal preparation. For high-end restaurants, the chefs can focus on more and better their meals they're good at. For the meal subscriptions, the consumers today, if they find more discount from the restaurants themselves, they're more willing to use it. Lastly, healthy and diet-specific food. Health has always been the issue people care about, including vegetarian, vegan, and perhaps many people believe that chicken is healthier than beef and pork. That's also why Chick-fil-A is more popular. For a vegetarian part, some people will use oat milk or almond milk to replace milk. We all know that in the F&B industry, population, income, race, restaurant, religion, culture, lifestyle, climate, and environment, etc., will have influence on the development and items offered. Therefore, here are some statistics for you. First is the US population by race. The number one, close to 80%, is to white people. Next is 13.4% by black or African Americans. Asian only account for about 6%, in which there are Koreans, Japanese, Chinese, and Indians. Altogether account for 6% only. There is a map for race distribution across the U.S. In the Northeast, it's blue area where the white are the majority, whereas in the Southeast, it's black that are the majority in the Southeast region. There are some green color, which is Latino population. It's also close to Mexico, so there are Mexican residents too. You can also see Asians are sporadically distributing across the country in major cities. Here's the ratio of religions in the U.S. Since the white are the majority, the Protestants and Catholics combined account for 63%, whereas the rest are 1 to 2% each. There are Jews, Mormons, as well as Muslims, Hindus, and Buddhists. They are 1 to 2% each only. Here's the U.S. cities by population. The top three are New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago. The population in New York is 8.25 million, which is double the number of Los Angeles in the second place. Also, you can see in the top 10, there are 3 cities, including San Jose, Los Angeles, and San Diego in California, while Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio are located in Texas. So California and Texas are 2 places you can look into for expansion or further study. Next is the ranking of the median household income in the U.S. The number 1 here is San Francisco with a household income of $120,000, and it's $110,000 in San Jose, $100,000 in Seattle. In fact, in Silicon Valley, it's quite common to see yearly income of 100,000, 200,000, and 300,000 USD. And these rich cities, San Francisco, San Jose, Los Angeles, and San Diego, are all in California. They account for a huge share. We can see Austin in Texas. It's also a tech city with lots of tech companies. Last year, Oracle moved its headquarters from California to Texas as well. There are also rumors that some other tech companies will move from California to Texas too. So Austin in Texas is a city worthy of further study as well. What we talked about previously is about income, purchase power, and in addition to that, companies in opening stores should also look into expenses as well. So let's take a look at the base salaries for F&B industries. It's useful for hiring employees. Let's see the ranking of the base salaries across U.S. In top 3, the first one is District of Columbia, the capital of the U.S. The second place is California. The third is Washington. We know that California, that's for top 10 cities with high income. Therefore, the base salaries is the higher. It's $14. It's the base salary ranked by city. We can see one in blue are in fact in California, 7 cities in total: San Francisco, Mountain View, or Sunnyvale, or Cupertino. Are cities where many Chinese live in. We can see it here. The government of California demands a yearly raise of the base salary. It's raised by about 0.5 to $1. In 2021, if you have employees of 25 or less, it's $13. If you have 26 or more, it's $14. We can also project it for the next year, with the raise from by $1 to $14 seem not so much, but it's actually a 7.7% raise. All right, that's the F&B industry in the U.S. Next, the development of Taiwanese F&B franchise brands in the U.S. Here is the Taiwanese brand we know of that are developing in the U.S. You can see that handshake beverage brands account for the majority. It's about 20 brands from what we know of, including Coco that has 52 stores in the US, 60 stores of Happy Lemon, 30 stores of Mr. Wish. As for desserts, Meat Fresh has about 30 stores, and 85 Cafe in bakery has about 70 stores. Din Tai Fung in Chinese cuisine has 13 stores. And these brands in the US, their development primarily started from the regions with Chinese community. And the white people are getting familiar with the handshake beverage and food, and they're also targeting wide region as well to expand their presence. Here's one example that many Chinese gather. That's Flushing in Queens of New York. There are 20 to 30 stores beverage in the region. These pictures are taken by Zhuang Zhenghui, the OCIC counselor there in early July. You can see there are brands from Taiwan, China, and those established in the US like Xingfu Tang, Tiger Sugar and Coco, and Chunyang are Taiwanese brands, and also Mo GT on the second row is the Chinese brand, and Kung Fu Tea and Tea Bar next to it are brands established locally in the US. We can also see that Coco at the top center, they have discount campaign of $5 for two from July 3rd to 4th, which goes with the celebration of Independence Day of US. In some stores, you can see side A, that means the highest rating of health rating. Next is the three cases of Taiwanese brand developing in the US. The first is Xingfu Tang. Established in 2017, it entered the US by finding a national franchise agent in charge of the whole business in the US. The agent in 2019 opened the first store at Flushing, occupying 3,000 square feet, which is about 30 pins, and the rent is about $20,000 due to the high density in Flushing. It's just like the beverage shops in Taipei, no seats available, only to go or delivery. Unfortunately, opened in 2019, it was impacted by the pandemic in 2020. Thanks to the vaccination in the US in 2021, the business in Flushing restored by 80%, and Xingfu Tang now is about to open the flagship store in Southern California, and they feature freshly made bubble tea and bubbles. The tapioca flour and squash powder are imported from Taiwan. They started from the dough and then put it into the bubble machine and then mix the brown sugar and bubble all freshly in the store. Next, we can see Meat Fresh. They established in 2007 with 800 stores worldwide. China has the most stores with over 700 stores available. Meat Fresh entered the US in 2014. It was Meat Fresh set up a subsidiary there to operate directly in the local market. Yet, if you want to copy their model, to open regular chain store locally without a local, regional, or national agent, it requires more capital because the decoration, rents, equipment, or warehouse installation will be of your responsibility. Meat Fresh first store in the U.S. opened at Irvine, Southern California, and they leveraged the reputation gain in China. So there was a huge long line in opening. And the second store is open at Main Street, Cupertino, and it occupies about 6,000 square feet with a rent of $30,000 available with 200 seats available. And you can see the picture. That was a picture before pandemic. and decoration equipment combined, the cost is about $1.25 million, which is costlier than the standard store of meat fresh by 200%. The reason why I opened at Cupertino was that there was a lot of Chinese there with mid to high income and strong spending power and lots of international brands of the nearby. There are 10 regular chain stores of meat fresh in the US, basically in northern and southern California. Also, there are seven more stores coming up to support their local chain stores. They also set up their own warehouses in the US. They imported ingredients like taro balls, grass jelly, and white gourd cubes, and other ingredients and packaging materials so that each store can order small amount locally and reduce waste. So other F&B companies that want to leverage their model and set in the US to effectively expand in the US market. That's all for meat fresh. Next is Gongcha. They do not have a national agent but have 4 regional agents there. Even though it has been purchased by a British company and it's not Taiwanese company anymore, but their experience is something we can learn still. Currently, they have over 100 stores in the US. Last year, it established in the US. The US-EU headquarters in 5 years aims to expand into 500 stores in total. Gongcha's first store in the US opened in California in 2013. It worked with its regional agent in California to develop their regional franchise. So there are 26 stores, and 5 of which are run directly by the regional agent, whereas 21 are franchise stores. And they focused on Northern California and later expanded into Southern California. And they are basically on a county basis. So it's like going to LA County, Orange County, and grants franchise right to sub-agent. For agents in California, they also have a 5-star program available for them to earn points across stores. And also they have a gift card. For example, buying $25 gift card for Christmas can get you 1 extra beverage for free. So you can buy the gift and get a free drink and give the gift card to others. Here's the Gongcha terms for franchise. That's another franchise agent that in charge of the New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, and Texas. The single franchise fee is about $41,500 per unit. The initial franchise fee is about $160,000 to $320,000. The agreement duration is about 10 years. The monthly royalty is about 4.5%, and that's about the Gongcha's case. And here are some reminders for you. That's, for example, FDD, health inspection, and labor rights. First, the FDD, if you want to engage franchise business in the US, you have to get FDD first. That is a franchise disclosure document. Relevant regulations are vary across states. Some states are loose, some are tighter. And if you violate relevant regulations, will be some consequences. And of course, for health inspection, if you found cockroaches or rats, you'll be asked to close down for a month and be fined. So they will work with third-party health inspection companies, Meat Fresh, to ensure their health quality management to have inspection beforehand. And the third is labor rights. In the US, the awareness of labor rights is stronger. So if you violate their rights or regulations, you are likely to be sued or fined. So be careful for the different regulations across states. to enter the US market, let's see the means to expansion. There are these means. The basic one is network resources locally. The second is brand awareness, like opening stores in famous attractions like Chatai, will open stores in popular tourist attractions so that they can draw people from around the world to their stores and to have more opportunities to expand. The third is online marketing. Some companies will build beautiful websites and use online advertising or Google Ads to reach out to potential consumers. Next is international affairs, including international franchise show and franchise expo. In different cities in the U.S., there will be franchise shows organized in turn each year. Taiwanese companies can also think about participate in these events. Before the pandemic, TAITRA also will organize franchise brand missions each year to attend events in different countries. We also have international matching meeting for one-on-one meeting with buyer. That's what we do, TAITRA. So all companies are welcome to join us. Here are the franchise events of TAITRA in 2021. We have lectures, business day, and trade meetings. For business day, we ask 63 embassies worldwide to report us the buyers locally that are interested in Taiwanese franchise brands and their needs, like items or what kind of food or handshake beverage or hotpot they want. And foreign buyers can reach out to our foreign embassies, and we collect the information and will forward these information and match these to suitable Taiwanese brands. Lastly, the trade meetings. This year we have those for North America, mainland China, new supply countries, Japan, Korea, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, Singapore, and China. And we'll gather the Taiwanese brands and then also ask the embassies to promote these brands locally and then find potential buyers and connect them. Here's the recent success case. We have been seasoned in this week here. We helped to connect 2009 with Palau with Chatai. So in March, they officially signed the contract. So in this year, this is the 2021 online trade meeting for North America. At present, we have 12 brands on board, and we can see logos here. For buyers in the North America that are interested in these brands, welcome to scan the QR code or click on the link to join for one-on-one meeting with these companies, and perhaps you can become the local agents for them to expand together locally. There are bubble tea brands like Coco, Chatai, Mr. Sun, HAPPYLEMON, and Mr. Wish, and there is also nut milk tea like Nutty, HWC Roasters, and so Snow Ice brand Isuna. Shangtong provides bubble ingredients. Yufeng supply syrups. Folks supply automatic bubble milk tea. Advanced supplier of F&B related smart services like Post. So thank you. I think that should be helpful for you for better understanding of the US market. If you have any needs for global expansion, please welcome to reach out to us, TAITRA. I believe for the F&B franchise business in the U.S., the development of Taiwanese F&B franchise brands in the U.S., you may have a basic understanding. Next, let's welcome Jeff Tseng, chairman of McWish, to share with us Taiwanese fruit tea enter the U.S. market. Mr. Wish has stores in Taiwan, China, U.S., Vietnam, and Cambodia. Jeff shall share with you their global expansion strategy and things to know. Hello, everyone. I'm chairman of Mr. Wish, Jeff Tseng. It's a pleasure to share with you about tips for franchise business in the US and Canada. First, I'd like to introduce our brand. Our brand is Mr. Wish. It features fruit tea as its main products. About our product series, there are three fruit product series, like yellow fruit tea, with yellow as its base, and red fruit tea and green fruit tea. They take red fruits and green fruits as their base, respectively. These are the things we are proud of. For the younger generation, we really care about this market actually, like our thick milk tea series, which is loved by our consumers, including thick milk tea of mango, kiwi, strawberry, etc., are all loved products by our consumers. In addition to our outstanding fruit tea, we also have milk tea and special tea series. All of them are popular. Of course, starting from 2017 to date, we've been expanding into other countries. We've successfully promoted fruits in Taiwan to worldwide, though we're still working on certain countries. We've entered several major big cities, markets like the US, Canada, mainland China, Vietnam, and Cambodia that is about to enter. These are the main markets we operate. We will continue to develop into other countries as well. In 2021, we also have the latest stylish store type. It's primarily in white color that conveys the sense of clean, quality kitchen of Northern Europe. These are the key visual elements. It's of course the core of our design because we think fruit is fresh, and we want to leverage this pure environment and design to foster the image of Mr. Wish. In terms of marketing, we have lots of campaigns as well, like working with Heineken and with CTBC and Ghirardelli for chocolate products, and Guai Guai and Gintama, and with many more brands for co-branded exposure. There are also our own marketing campaigns like our Wish Club campaign and so on. In marketing, we also work with bloggers and many people for seasonal products. And in different seasons, with different fruits, we launch different products. When Taiwanese fruits are in season, we also work with Council of Agriculture too. And these partnerships rewarded us hugely in terms of media exposure. What we're proud of is that we launched Wish card of our own. We can add value to this card for us to purchase any items with it in any of our stores. It offers 10% off. It can also earn points bonus and get the birthday gift. This is the exclusive program. And with our franchisees, we will organize many sharings, including trainings and new product launch. They will have trials of our new products, and also will share and communicate the marketing strategies of next quarter. And next is our focus on the international development campaigns. Of course, overseas franchise requires trademark first. Trademark goes first. Prior to trademark application, we need to check several key items. First is the scope of application. Take the beverage industry, for instance. It's 29, 30, 32, etc. Each F&B industry has different categories, so you need to figure it out the scope of application first. The second step is investigation in advance. Investigation is to check if your trademark has been registered already in the market. If your text or image is the same or similar, to others that will hinder the application approval. So this investigation is required. You can find a local trademark agency to handle these matters for you. The third is application in the targeted markets. It means that like US or Canada or other countries like the Southeast Asia, Vietnam or China, each market has different requirements or regulations for trademark application. So you need to find the targeted markets. You aim to do all these. And of course, you need to figure out the required processes. Regarding the processes, from the filing of application to the window of contact and required documents, all these are quite important. So after you figure out these processes, you can start to prepare your documents. After that, send it to the countries, like to the US, for example, to ask someone to file it for you or to file it by yourself. And the whole process from application till the end of it may take about 8 months, 1 year, or 1.5 years, or 2. Each country is different, so you have to figure them out. With your trademark, it will be easier for you to develop your business in the market. The last one is expiration date. That means trademark isn't lasting forever. It might just 10 years or so, depending on the countries. It might be a bit different. So after figuring it out, we'll know if we should extend it and how to utilize the trademark before expiration date. I think these are issues we may encounter when we enter other countries with our trademark application locally. Next is to learn about the local regulations. There are several parts. The first one is about export. Because we're F&B company in Taiwan, there are lots of ingredients we need to export to the US and Canada. And of course, if we export to the US, their FDA will have relevant regulations that require us to check them out first. In the investigations, we'll see if a certain ingredient can enter the US successfully or not. Of course, it is recommended that you find a more experienced like agent to assist us with these matters. Or else our cargo arrive in the US and we may not get to it. Or there's something wrong with the FDA that will cost us dearly. So you have to figure out them first. The regulations at the beginning. All right, that's about the FDA. After arriving the US, entering the US border, you may want to do franchise business in the US. I think one thing is important, but may be ignored. That is FDD. Regarding FDD, the US is a federal government, and each state government has their own regulations on franchise business as well. So if we want to register our corporate name onto their FDD website for anyone who wants to be franchised to refer to, it would take a long time, like about a year. And you need to prepare lots of paperwork to disclose lots of information. In addition to that, we need to work with local lawyers too. It's interesting that FDD is not something you applied in one place and then it applies to the whole US. You have to apply for it state by state. And based on my experience, California is perhaps the most rigid one, so you may want to start the application with California first. Then it will be easier for you to go and apply in other states. Next is about tax laws and regulations. Since we're in franchise business, we will have the agency fee, of course. And if we want to collect the fees back to Taiwan, they will collect the relevant taxes as well. But many people fail to consider taxes when they do franchise business. So when they collect the fees, they will realize that they'll have to pay the taxes. So about the taxes, I remember there are changes each year, especially after the Trump administration. There may be some changes as well. So the actual number require you to consult with professional consultants, accountants. So you can see it better. It's about 10 to 30%. If my memory doesn't fail me. So for the you have to be extra careful about the taxes incurred from agency fees at the beginning of the negotiation. You need to calculate them first. It's a key element. And finally, it's the labor regulations. In the local market, there are many authorities like our Ministry of Labor. The US is the same. It's just that their regulations are quite different. The salaries, insurance, etc. will be quite different from those in Taiwan. So if you want to do business there, you have to consult with the local lawyers to go through the labor regulations. Furthermore, we may even have to stipulate labor contracts. After labor contracts formulated, it will be easier for us to run the store. The next thing is to check the partners in the market. When we choose our local market partner, there are several points for you. First is the partner has the capacity for storage and logistics, like in the US, whether it is in the eastern or western of US or other areas, there may be issues with logistics. If you want to develop franchise business, it means we have stores everywhere. If we target the eastern US first and then open a shop in the West and one in Seattle and one in Houston, then it might be a huge logistic issue. So for the storage and logistics, it's important that our local partner are capable of resolving relevant issues. So when you find your partner, you have to know if they are capable in these areas. That's the first thing. The second thing is the ability to acquire a spot for your store. For example, if your partner is in New York and wants to open a store there, it's important for if your partner knows someone like realty estates. However, to enter a mall, the partner may be well connected to secure a great spot for the store. We all know that the key is location. Finding a great spot can help with our publicity as well. So we have to know if our partner has the ability to secure a great spot for the store. The third is their background. Is that the one we want to work with us has a background in several in service industry. With a background in service industry is, of course, it's a bonus for us to expand. And when they have our brand, they can better develop locally. And they will develop it easier and better That's about the background check. Next is their ability in import-export operations. For instance, so if after we export ingredients to the US, they need to collect them and to put them into their warehouses. Do they have relevant experiences? Or if they know about the local regulations, I think that's a key for our local partners there. And the last one is team. If it's just one man, they cannot develop your brand well. It takes a team to pull it off. So they need a team to develop our brand. So who is on his or her team? What kind of expertise they have? I think it's critical to our partner. So after they find a team, we can franchise our brand to our partner for them to develop. For we F&B company to develop elsewhere, like the eastern or western of the US, after all, there is no counting for taste. So in the eastern U.S., there are different tastes for Caucasians, Asians, Africans, or other Asians. What kind of preferences they have? Is it the right city we target? It takes a lot of work to figure out the local taste preferences. The second is the store design. Here, in Taiwan, we have to-go shops very close to each other. But in the US, it's more likely to be different. They are different from building to building, and their main transportation is car. It's quite a distance from one place to another after all. So your design and your brand design have to take into account the seats for guests. If your shop doesn't have seats, they may not want to come to your store. Even though we're a beverage shop, we still need to have seats in our shop. So that's quite different compared to that in Taiwan. The third is the store location. Is it a shop on the street or in the mall? Like in the US, there are a lot of plaza, and there are also street shops as well, Chinatown or the Little Saigon. Each community has different groups. So with different groups, where can our products fit? That's something we should have a localized investigation. That's the third part, actually. The fourth one are price, salaries, consumption level, and so on and so forth. We all have to consider all these after the ingredients imported to the US. Will the profit structure change? The profit structure in Taiwan will be quite different from that in the US. Their salary level is about 2 or 3 times of ours. And their rents are also higher in foods. As for the ingredients, after it's exported from Taiwan to the US and delivered to stores, the profit structure will be quite different. That's our homework for localization. Also, the adjustment to trainings. Now that we want to develop franchise business, the key to the business is our employee training. And is the training in Taiwan the same with that in the US? When we want to replicate to make the products standardized, the training content will require a huge adjustment. Hence, all these require localization and investigation so we can know our next step to go. And of course, to work with our agent, we have to be clear in our contract. That include to check if the party is a legitimate party. It means whether it has his or own entity. Is the entity legal? These require due diligence to check their credibility. So we know the one working with us is a legitimate party in the US. Then it's the franchise duration, and the duration in Taiwan may be different. It's about 3 to 5 years in Taiwan. In the US, it's about 10 years or so. About that range. So we might also have to adjust that. As for the store number in the duration, and it depends on the brand's expectation, goals, and strategies. And so the number of stores have to be specified in the contract at the start. In the event of any conflict, where should we go for arbitration? Is it in a third place or in the US locally? I think you may refer to a local lawyer to look into this thoroughly and make it fit in the contract for the terms of for renewal or termination. Many people fail to specify them in the contract at the beginning. So when it comes to contract renewal, do we have to collect the agency fee again? In what condition or violation can we terminate the contract with them? I think these are items to be specified clearly in your contract, and to specify the rights and obligations of both parties, and especially anything about the money is absolutely necessary in the contract. And finally, to grant franchise right, what are the terms for our partner to grant franchise right? The rights and obligations and issues with money are something we should specify one by one and have a local attorney to formulate the contract. I think that will make a sound agency contract. So that's all for my presentation. Thank you. Thank Chairman Tseng for sharing the aspects to consider for F&B brands to enter a new market, including regulations, partner background, strategies, and contract formulation. Next speaker is Yamitao, Vice President of Global Business Development, Stephanie Grills, to share with us Boba tea is all the rage in the U.S. Yamitao's brand Happy Lemon has over 1,200 stores worldwide. In recent years, they expanded into U.S. From west to east. You can see the yellow signs of Happy Lemon. They'll share with us the first-hand information about the Boba tea in the U.S. Hello everyone, I'm Stephen Grills. On behalf of Yamitao, I'm going to share about Yamitao's Happy Lemon, its development, expansion, and storage in the U.S. When did Yamitao enter the U.S.? It's December 2014. It was our first shop set up in the eastern U.S. After 6 years of development, Yamitao expanded from 1 store to 63 stores across the U.S. today. This is the map of the U.S. Our stores are mainly located in the West, especially in the Northern California, the region. In the Silicon Valley, we have 30 stores there. From 2021 to 2025, we set it as the time for Happy Lemon to shine and fly in the U.S. After we set our food right in the U.S., we aim to open 300 stores in the U.S. for the next 5 years. That means to expand from the 63 stores to 300 stores by 2025. So you may wonder, how can you expand in the U.S.? what's your strategy? We want to leverage the idea of one brand, one main product to take root deeply in the U.S. We leverage our regular chain stores and local franchisees, partners, and strategic partners, and local supply chains to better develop in the market. Let's take a look at the landscape of handshake beverage in the U.S., especially the post-pandemic landscape. As you know, starting from June 15, each state started to lift their lockdowns. We're going to share a video, Seattle, that's filmed in late June. It's the sixth store in Seattle. Let's check it out. I'm curious about what's your feedback to this video. Perhaps you'll see it was when the US hadn't lifted their restrictions, yet a huge crowd gathered. And among the long line, you must see that the people were mostly younger generation. Over the past year, during the worst time in the US, we found that our stores in the US, we found there are operations that if it was not in the mall or the mall was not closed, the street shops by plazas could have better revenues than they used to have before the pandemic. The key is the handshake beverage. You can just grab it and go. During the lockdown, many F&B could not have guests to dine in. But that's something very convenient for anybody to grab and go. So many young people would still come to our stores. So that's our stores. Let's take a look at the statistics. Here's the statistics for your reference from US Tea Association and Statistics Company. Many people thought the Americans prefer coffee mostly, but the data show that we realized Americans actually love drinking tea. Of the 300 million people in the US, there were about 159 million people would drink tea on a daily basis. Of the top 3 tea imported countries, US is one of them. So we also saw that in the Western countries, the US is the sole country with both tea import and tea consumption growing. Both have two-digit growth in the US. That means a growth of at least 10%. We also see that of the tea consumers in the US, the millennials accounted for the majority, especially the ones aged 18 to 29. We found that ratio of tea and coffee was about the same. Evidently, when the population grows, there will be next younger generation. It means the tea consumers in the US will be more and more in the future, and perhaps it will outrun the coffee counterpart. That's a great news for Taiwanese, for the handshake beverage companies in Taiwan. Then let's take a look at the boba tea market in the US and over the course of 6 years. We found that the delicacy-related social media in the US, in mainland China, they may have Dianping. We have in Taiwan like Pixnet, or the recommended posts on Facebook. But in the US is Yelp. From the data of Yelp over the social media in the past few years, that inquires for or posts concerning boba tea are growing in full. grows on a yearly basis. We also see in the 6 years of our business in the US, the sales of our stores also went through some amazing changes as well. In the early days, Taiwanese brand and products entered the US market. It's a strange market, and out of the cultural same reason, people tend to open stores in Chinese communities. Back then, Happy Lemon opened its first store in the US in 2014, following the same logic. It was great with 1,000 cups daily. Over the years, we found that many Taiwanese tea brands also came along. So today we realized that if we open the stores with a lot of Chinese, the number of cups will be about 200 to 300 cups. However, if we open a store in an area with diversified groups, in the mainstream areas like the communities of commercial districts, where the Caucasians are, the sales will be astonishing with 800 cups per day and even 1,000 more. And take our Seattle's, for example. So if we can open store in the mainstream and they can see and connect and embrace our brand, that's when we actually can take root deeply in the US market. So let's take a look at how we can be more localized in the US. Many people say that Taiwan is a country good at making products, including electronic companies in the past. We're good at making cell phone, TVs, computers, cell phones, and chips. Our OEM is very strong. We also paradise of foodies. We have Boba tea. It's from Taiwan. So apart from being yummy, how we can make it a company or a brand out of the product, we're still at the budding stage. So here, I highlighted markets more mature than ours and the emerging markets behind us. Taiwan is somewhere in the middle. If we see the US market is definitely the most mature market regarding F&B industries. The franchise market is in fact invented by the Americans. Currently, the top 10 F&B franchises brand in the world we know of, including McDonald's, Yummy's, Taco Bell's, and KFC, and Starbucks is the most famous beverage. These are all from US. So when we enter the US market that is mature with complete chain store brands, chain stores, and franchise systems, how we can compete with these American brands? Some people will be a bit worried, but I think Taiwanese beverage companies also have their advantages. How so? It's a mature market. So it's good for us that we just do what others do right. And we see the lesson learned by others. We can avoid that. So that's something we can learn from the competing mature market. Next slide shows you the Taiwanese brands and the local emerging brands in the US. When it comes to handshake beverage, it was truly the Taiwanese that brought it into the US. Before 2000, there was no boba tea in Taiwan either. I think in 2000, perhaps it was Quickly that brought it into the US. Over the years, Quickly has transformed into a supplier of ingredients. So it's rare to see them in the US today. They sell ingredients of tea mainly. From 2000 to 2008, Taiwanese tea brands started to venture into the US one after another, like Coco, Gongcha, and Chat Time are brands brands that entered the US market after 2008. In the meantime, the local brands of the US also emerged one by one, like Boba, Kung Fu Tea, are brands established by the second generation of the Chinese there, starting from 2017. There are more refined brands that wanted to take root in the US as well, like Seven Leaves, which is very popular in California, established in around 2017 by a Vietnamese American. We also found that HAPPYLEMON was not the first brand that entered the US market in just 2014 in the middle. We found that many Taiwanese brands entering the market in the early days adopted a traditional approach. There is no franchise headquarters there. Many Taiwanese tea brands have their headquarters in Taiwan and manage remotely the franchisees far in the US. So the support and service provided by the headquarters would be diminished. And the lack of supply chain and service team locally will hinder the operation and development of our brands as well. We also see that Taiwanese tea brands in the US didn't soar in number year by year. Instead, many of them are shrinking year by year. The local brands, however, are rising. When we entered the market in 2014, we saw that trend already. We believe that for a brand to thrive there, it's necessary to take root locally, or else it's hard to be localized. After all, it's far away. Each country is different. Consumer habits or cultures. If we transplant directly from Taiwan without any change, it's hard to succeed because the cultures are different. So we learn from Starbucks. We have joint ventures. In 2017, we set up in the US our franchise headquarters of HAPPYLEMON. To date, the number of regular chain stores and franchise chain stores combined is just 63 stores. We also have a local team formed in the US and also warehouses in the US and training teams there. We have all these because we want to take root deeply. We realize that for brands to stand out in the US, for Taiwanese brands concerned, it's not Taiwanese brands of our greatest competitors, but the local brands. We have three strategies for our development. That is brand first, service first, and partner upgrade. Our partner is our priority. For HAPPYLEMON, we are a franchise system apart from the regular store. Our vital partners are the local franchise agencies in the region. So our strategies in the US are to have a deeper partnership with our elite partners. In the operation over the 6 years, we have cultivated a good team with decent performances in the US. So we leveraged them, entering the US market with their help, learning from the market, and also formed a joint venture with them and to form a strategic alliance. And of course, we want to become the #1 tea chain brand in the US. Next, either to HAPPYLEMON or to many Taiwanese F&B tea brands, we also have to face the changes to the post-pandemic US market. The US lifted their restrictions. By July 4th, they will be fully open. We also know that the consumer behaviors are harder to go back. Why? Because over the last year, the US has been under lockdown. Many F&B stores could not have dine-in for customers, so only to go. So for the last year, many to-go platform or the so-called delivery service platform are rising up with their digital orders. This consumer behavior, even after the restrictions lifted, has been changed and fixed. So this is gonna be impact our future F&B development as well. So for many tea brands, including HAPPYLEMON, how to incorporate the emerging technology locally in the US is the key to the consumer in the US. That's something to bear in mind. Of course, it impacted American businesses hugely as well. How to, for example, work from home, adjust flexibly to the changes of the pandemic. Even though we have the vaccines, to return business as usual, we estimated at least 6 months to over a year. So in the short term, the F&B operations in the US will have huge changes both in quantity and quality. Brands will have to enough flexibility and adaptability to adjust in a timely manner. Next, over the 6 years are taking root in the US, we have fruitful outcomes as well. For the past years, almost each year, there are media covering our stories of HAPPYLEMON. From CNN, CNBC to the emerging online media, we have been covered by those media, naming us the must-drink beverage for Chinese and even the top 10 handshake beverage in the world. And in 2019, we're also very excited that even the richest people in the world, Bezos, came to our store in Seattle. So it's not just a beverage for Chinese, but also for the majority in the US. Let's see the results. It's a result from California, from a survey company in California. They produce a ranking based on the number of stores and the ratings on social media. HAPPYLEMON was number one with a total score over 90. Recently, we're also very excited that we have advertisement on Times Square celebrating the 15th anniversary of our brand HAPPYLEMON. We also hope that with the ease up of the pandemic and the restriction lifted, HAPPYLEMON, Yummy Town, and Taiwanese handshake beverage can shine brilliantly in the US. Thank you. Thanks for Vice President to bring us the great news of a rapid growth of the US F&B market. We urge all the brands enter the mainstream in order to become the leading brands in the US. The following section talks about US laws and accounting and taxes. The speaker here is an attorney from Green Maple Law Group, Danny Chen, to share common issues with brand expansion in the U.S. and solutions. They provide services in regulations related to immigrations and franchise business in the U.S. and assisting numerous Taiwanese franchise brands into the U.S. Hello, everyone. I'm Danny Chen, living in South California, U.S. at Irvine of Orange County. It's a pleasure to share with you the common issues with brand expansion into the US and solutions. There are a lot of issues actually. Today, we will focus on the critical ones, like the US business laws, labor laws, intellectual property rights, and franchising laws. Also, if you want to send someone from Taiwan to the US, the laws for visa and immigration. Of course, there are a lot of topics, yet due to the time limit, we'll share from our years of experience and the trends of our colleagues observed in Taiwan and the US. Also, apart from a lawyer's perspective, I have my personal experience to share with you today. For starters, let's talk about the trend of brand expansion to the US. We recall a decade ago, 85 Cafe and Meat Fresh shook the whole Asia. Why? Because the news were talking about it. There were lines in front of the stores. I myself even had to wait for 2 hours for it. Today, we know that there's a lot of brands, big or small. There are overseas Chinese in the US, may consult on how to bring the brands to the US. So from over a decade ago to date, we've seen more and more brands landed. which is a good thing. It means the market is developed with more and more products available. So, expansion to the US market comes with various models. For example, there are regular chain model with HQ from Taiwan or elsewhere to set foot in the US. There are also joint venture model. The foreign HQ have local partners to work together to develop the US market. There is also a franchise model. It means the regions or the wholesales is granted to a US-based franchise agent for handling the administration and development here. There is also a regional franchise model, for example, the Southern and or Northern California or Washington State. As it is more and more mature these days, we see more brands in the US to have franchising business here. So we see more and more single franchising here. With more brands coming here, it's getting more transparent, and people are more daring from brand franchising to HQ landed in the US and supply chain onshore as well. We provide services to all these. It means the market is mature. Another trend is that the Asians here, the first 1.5 generation and the new immigration, or even 2.0 or EBT, American-born Taiwanese, they develop their brands. The trend indicates that a highly mature market with much room to grow. So in terms of consumers, we've mentioned earlier, there are some locally developed brands. We can see the immigrants from Taiwan or Asia as consumers. Here's the US, so there are mainstream market as well. So for the consumers, one client used to tell me that to succeed in the US, it needs the strategy and determination to bring the West with the Chinese. That means to bring the West with the Chinese and to secure the Chinese that likely to attract more the Westerners to embrace it, like the Boba tea here, or bakery have been seen on the mainstream media, like movies or TV series here. They're getting common here. So for brands that are thinking to expand here, well, I hope to see you here as soon as possible. Another trend here is that some people say you can grow flowers everywhere. It's actually true. We all know that there are tier 1 cities in the US like Los Angeles, Irvine, San Francisco, New York, and Chicago, and so on. There are also places where many Chinese live. In addition, there are some places that are relatively remote. For example, I've been traveling with my family. We arrived somewhere remote. It's about 10,000 people or so, with Caucasians as the majority. And then with the app Yelp, we searched for a bubble tea and found there was a shop. I wanted to buy 3 beverages, and I waited in line for over an hour. So opportunities are everywhere. It's not necessary to get to the first tier city because there are lots of markets in the US. You can actually exploit. Before we go any deeper, I forgot to mention, we talked about more and more brands coming to the US. We also saw that more and more stories. Here, we'd like to share some cases. Our firm has seen or helped with the issues. For instance, there was a brand investing capitals and coming to the US. The local agent here took the money to the Las Vegas and dreaming about becoming the god of gamblers. The agent spent it all. There was also a brand granting franchise right in the US. and had the trademark registered by the service party there. And some Taiwanese developed a machine very useful among Asia, but it was stuck at the custom of the U.S. because it did not have the safety certificate, so it cannot pass the border and use it here in U.S. There is another case they developed for 3 to 4 years, and quite successful. But there was an employee who was injured at work, and there was a labor dispute as a result. And because of that, the brand was forced to close down here as the payment amount was too high. Another case is a franchise brand with over 20 franchisees. Then one of the franchisees found a flaw in the FDD with many issues, which hindered the brand's development further in the US because it was stuck and the brand couldn't be used anymore. Finally, a case recently, there was a brand. The employees use ESTA and B1, B2, the visa for business trip from AIT to travel between Taiwan and the US frequently. And the immigration got suspicious eventually because they were curious about that. As a result, they were held up and got repatriated back to Taiwan. Consequently, when the brand wants to send somebody to the US, either at AIT or immigration, it's harder for them because they are on the blacklist. So these are true cases. We all have to know the laws here. And I forgot to mention here, I was born in Hsinchu, grew up in Vancouver, and went to law school in Michigan State University, and worked at Hong Kong before moving to Southern California. I'm currently a consultant to OCAC, and formerly president of the TALA, the president of TJCC&A, and I'm a licensed lawyer in California, New York, and Washington. We've served many transnational brands as well in their expansion into the US. Apart from the lawyers, as I mentioned, I also have personal experiences. Why? Because I myself was investing in the F&B industry. I own a sports bar that's well received by the Westerners. It's a place to watch sports, drink adult beverage, and have unhealthy diet food. So that's the restaurant I have. Also, every lawyer doing presentation like this, they have to make a statement. That is, today we're just simple sharing, just like casual chat. Brand owners, you're welcome to the US, and look forward to see you and testing your products here in US. Nevertheless, please do your homework, and we're also pleased to assist you. Let's dive in to the first common issues. Business laws. Coming to the US requires you to set up a company first, and with the company you can do whatever is necessary in the US. The first common question is that, what kind of entity should I have? Entity? For foreign companies or individuals, to establish a company here, it's usually an LLC or a C corporation. So, which one should I have? The best answer, ask your accountant or business lawyer. The angles of accountant or lawyer, what's the difference? The accountant is meant to help you with IRS or filing to the state governments. They will help you to comply with the filing process requirements. In addition, they are responsible to helping you with legal tax mitigation. Whereas the business lawyer, when you select the type of the entity, they are responsible to build a sound business firewall for you. The firewall means, for example, if there is any issue arises, if your employee sue you or a customer wants to sue you, which entity can provide the best firewall. And the current plan of the companies and the future plans for it. Let's say one day you want to go for an IPO, and we can establish an entity ready for the step. After the establishment, either LLC or C Corp, you also have to maintain the company, like for the shareholdings regularly, and a due process for notification and announcements, etc. With a good accountant and lawyer can help you meet the basic requirements. Aside from these requirements, we also have to know the US is a huge country. It has a federal government and state governments, and for county like Orange County, LA counties, etc., and cities, there are even regulations in districts. Picture this. Although the laws in Taiwan are basically the same from Taipei to Kaohsiung, but Taipei City may have different laws from New Taipei City. In Taipei City, the East District and Xinyi District may also have different laws as well. So doing business in the US, you have to know the federal system and the state system. Your business lawyer and your team have to help you to have deeper understanding that, and give you something worthy of your attention locally. Another matter is insurance and claims. It's a pity that it's not everybody pressing charges every day. It's society with laws, reason, and motion. Everybody stick to their contracts. If there's any dispute arises, usually the solution is the so-called litigation, basically a lawsuit. It's because that's usually a faster solution to the issue. In addition to that, and these, a good advice is that all the commercial registration paper have to be kept carefully. If you have a professional to handle it for you, they can help you with that, to keep documents in order. Perhaps someday, if in the event of litigation you have all the documents ready, you need, although the US business laws allow verbal contract form between both individuals or parties, it's better to have a contract in writing. After verbal communication, it's a good habit to send via line, WeChat messages to confirm with the other. It's better than a verbal agreement. In the event of litigation, it's better than just memory. Another thing is that in the US, it's just like in Taiwan, they are technological advanced. So many headquarters, when they enter the US, it's better to keep up with the trend, with the tech. It's simple with like Google Doc, Google Suite, MS Office. They are useful for you to keep your business document sound and in order. Another common issue is that intellectual property. Remember the example I gave? A franchise right granted in the US, then the authorized party took the brand for itself. That's a rare case. Frankly speaking, that's too common an issue. How so? Many people thought that their Taiwanese brands are registered in Taiwan, so in foreign markets, especially in US, they didn't care about that because, well, it's okay. Everybody knows it. No, maybe not. So a good habit is that when you register brand, also remember it registered in the US as well. There's common practice. A good question is that who should register it? I'm the boss. It's my brand. It's under my name. Maybe not. It's because trademark registration is oftentimes a proof that you, the person or the owner, intends to use it. If you don't use it, not use it by yourself, by your company, It's possible in the court, the other party may take and exploit it as a flaw to prove that the brand is not used by yourself, but by a third party. Then you might lose your right to use it and got taken by a third party. So remember, for your brand trademark in registration, remember to consult with lawyers specializing IP laws on how to legally and safely register your brand and for how to grant rights to others in the future and how to legally grant rights and how to legally retake it. Another practice for anyone doing business in the US is insurance. Insurance in the US is like a visa. Lots of different insurance products actually. So remember to not just to have the most basic business insurance like the general liability GL. Remember to check with the one you purchased insurance. There's even an insurance lawyer in the US. Remember to consult with the professionals with additional products. What's necessary in your industry. The laws require workers' compensation. It's a program that covers workers. For this, people ask, how many workers do I have to purchase it? Just one. So picture that you're self-employed, or you have a friend or as a local partner, conduct business for you. Workers' compensation is absolutely required. Another thing is to buy D&O insurance, directors and officer liability insurance. Why do you need that? Oftentimes there are business disputes and litigation. The plaintiff won't just stop at the company, but also the other person in charge, like shareholders, directors, officers. Why? It's because the plaintiff wants to get the money from whoever's pockets. Under such circumstances, if the managers, like CEO or CFO, the professionals are from other countries or owners sent from Taiwan, remember to buy D&O insurance. Another thing is that when we rent a place, the landlord would demand basic insurance purchased by the tenant. But don't think these are enough. These are to protect the landlord. You have to see beyond the needs of a landlord. Anything you can have to protect yourself. Meanwhile, doing business in the US, you need a third-party service provider like an agent, construction team, etc. You can also demand a third party to purchase the insurances you want. So, after buying so many insurances, it's not just like that. There's a guy told me, oh, agents are the same until you have a claim. Just like the insurance guy are all the same until you have a complaint or have a claim. Even though this saying is biased against the agents, it means that one provides the insurance plan for you, also needs to know your needs and what coverages does the insurance company will cover you or not. These are the things to know before you purchase insurance. The last thing about insurance is time, especially in complex. The more complex your company is, a lot of business insurance will take time before they are approved. It's not that you want it tomorrow and just buy it, get a quote, and especially if, when you need to use fire involving gas or fire safety, it's recommended to 2 to 3 weeks or even 1 to 2 months before it. Meanwhile, before opening, your landlord would demand all insurance are valid in place. If you fail to purchase it earlier, you might have to postpone your opening. Another huge topic, it's also the most common issues, that is labor laws. First of all, we have to know that the US system, most of the time, it's to protect the workers. All right? The first common issue is whether the people you hire are legitimate workers. We may see it on the news that there are issues of illegal immigrants or illegal workers in the US. It's a land for people around the world to pursue their dreams, after all. So, of course, there are people who stay here without a legal identity. So, in terms of legitimate, remember to work with lawyers specializing labor laws. The basic principle is that your employees are illegally working here for you. There are some common tricks. There's a I-9 form. Immigration Service. It's a form for an employee to present the legal information to prove that he or she is allowed to work here. For example, if they are U.S. citizens, they can present the passport, or they can present a green card, or have an EAD. If they have that, you will also be specified on the I-9. And you, as an employer, will have to save a copy for that, because if Bureau of Labor or other agencies come to get you some trouble, you can at least present the paper that with the I-9 form, the guy is authorized to work here. In addition to that, the U.S. is going digital. So there's another system called E-Verify. It's an online system for employer to apply and enroll in the system of E-Verify. It's just like I-9. There is another step, that is to upload the employee's information to the system, and the government will tell you if the individual is authorized to work, or if the document isn't complete, there is a need for additional review. These are the tricks to minimize the possibility of hiring an unauthorized employee. Another thing is that we say employee. So what is employee? Employee is someone directly under your control. Can contractor be an employee? It's not, actually. Contractors, as we know it, like for a construction, you have a construction team. The construction team isn't your employees. However, there are many issues with employees versus contractors in the U.S. because many employees prefer you pay them as in contractors. Remember to be extra careful, because contractors can enjoy certain advantages in taxes. If they are working as a contractors, they can still sue you in line with the labor laws, claiming that they are employees, but you fail to comply with the laws or the Labor Department's requirement to withhold the amount and provide benefits. So they enjoy the advantages in taxes and still pressing charges against you. So it's critical, you have to bear in mind. Another thing is employee handbook. There are essential items to be specified in the handbook, like the company offers equal job opportunities instead of hiring certain individuals over the others. And the statement of arbitrary dismissal. All these details require professional lawyers in labor laws, especially the lawyers that represent employer, to help you to check them through. We often see disputes arising from time, like punch in and punch out, or discrimination issues, or injury at work, and sexual harassment, or employee considers that you dismiss them wrongfully. Even though with all the best preparation, you may not avoid them all. However, if you encounter these issues, you will have a good chance of winning. It doesn't mean it won't cost you a dime. At least it can reduce the costs of extortion for your safety. Why is it's called extortion? There are lots of attorneys in the U.S. representing labor. They may not demand money from the employees. When they press charges against you, if they can get a share out of it, they get a 30% or 50% out of it. So many employees and lawyers team up and to find employees with loopholes. So for this part, I sincerely advise you, when you run a business in the US, working hard to bring the brand here, you have to be extra careful about the labor laws. Another huge topic of the day is the franchising laws. We're talking about brands and expansion to the US today, right? So franchise, to begin with, the US is the birthplace of the idea of franchise and franchising laws. So like Kentucky Fried Chicken, McDonald's, there are franchise systems with long history. And also because of that, they have undergone many benign changes and also have pain lessons learned in the past. So they have the most complete franchise laws in the world. So what's the definition of franchise? The headquarters work with those who want to buy resources and IPs. The headquarters will provide trainings and mentorship. Meanwhile, either acquiring through money or by other benefits, the buyer will have certain limits as to their rights, and there will be interest exchange. In this case, it may be deemed as franchise. So the definition is quite broad. It doesn't require you to pay a certain amount of fees or percentage. So to make you a franchisee, that means many people might think that through certain creative means like zero franchisee fee or loyalty replacing with other means, so we can waive the claims of a franchise system. That's not correct. So if someone say they don't collect franchise fee or loyalty or neither, is it still a franchise? Yes. It might. Like you demand that they use your sign or they have to use your tea leaves or your cups. These means interest to you. When it comes to franchise, over the past few years, people know that for franchise business, you have to have FDD, Franchise Disclosure Document. So what's FDD? When do you need FDD? Can you do without it? Franchise disclosure document. Disclosure means to disclose information. Why do you have to do that? It's to protect consumers and franchisees. Now that franchisees invest into the brand with the expectation to have trainings and mentorship from the headquarters, and in exchange, they can make a living out of it. To protect them, the laws demand you to disclose. Disclose what? There are totally 23 items to be disclosed. The point is, if the headquarters has experience, you have to demonstrate that any currently or formerly litigation or history of bankruptcy, and the amount of franchisee fee and all the other fees for the franchisees to open the superstore. What's the initial investment required for it? Also, the limitation to franchisees' rights, like they can operate in certain regions, buy your stuff, products, ingredients, etc. Another thing is that the HQ's obligations. What kind of trainings, mentorship will the HQ provide? Another key is that we know that we have a rather senior accountant today, this HQ's audited financial statement. It's not something you pulled out from spreadsheets and that's it. It's a financial statement audited by an accountant. After disclosing all these, it allows potential franchisees to learn transparently about whether they should join you because you disclose information legally required to them. We have registration to the federal system, that's national. We also have additional registration for certain states. There are totally 13 states with such requirements, as you can imagine. The major states reach in business opportunities like California, New York, Hawaii, Washington, among the 13 states. Let's picture this way. You have to have FDD and you have your application approved. Then you can recruit franchisees in these states. With these in mind, the next question is, if I can start first and apply later. Start first and apply later means that I can open many stores first, maybe under the name of franchisees or good friends, and then register the brand and prepare the FDD later. Our advice is no, because franchise definition is quite broad. So, if the headquarter comes to the US and open regular chain store first, they can make use of the time and develop a chain store while prepare FDD. There are lots of SOPs in FDD. They're required to follow the regulations there. A direct transfer from Taiwan is oftentimes not appropriate. So is it possible for them to open a regular chain store first or prepare their FDD? Yes, it might. And try to avoid that. They may open one or two regular chain stores and are recruiting other franchisees as their franchisees legally. So we'll try to avoid do it first and apply later. So, because if you got caught because of it, or not being honest in filing FDD, it might be monetary penalty, or like the case with 20 stores that render them their brand not able to operate in specific states to run business there. It's a painful cost to any brand, especially when we have some results like what we shared with about 20 stores, which is impressive. What a pity. FDD and other franchise processes, like the preparation in the beginning, many people thought that I have all the documents. Remember, you have to localize it. All your SOPs have to be accurate. It's usually a lengthy process, at least about 3 to 4 months, and even as much as over a year. And when submitting to the state government for review, the time required is varied depending on the pandemic. Here in California, it may take 3 to 6 months. They may be quick back and forth between agency and us. They have to they need to clarify certain things or incomplete disclosure documents or in wrong format. So, and then after all these, you have to maintain it annually. Some states don't have this, but like California requires it. Like the renewal takes place prior to April 20th. So you have to submit the renewal before that for this year. So is there any other FDD specifically for new brands from Taiwan or other places? Yes. Now that you have this rather new brand that few people in the US know about it, or the capital HQ prepares is not substantial enough, possibly, the state government may ask you not to collect the franchise fee first until the franchisees open the store. or the franchise fee is withheld in some other account in an escrow account until the day of opening. It sounds rather reasonable one. Remember, the FDD and franchising law is to protect the franchisees. Okay? It's almost to the end. One more thing is that the common issue we saw is laws of immigration and visa. We know that the relationship between Taiwan and US are improving over the years. Also, in recent years, there is this e-visa system for visa-free, visa on arrival, etc., or the ISTA, replacing what we had in AIT to get the B1, B2 visa. Therefore, for Taiwanese to visit US either for investigation, survey, or necessary meetings, it's now easier for us. But remember, it's to allow individuals to enter US for business travel. It's not for individuals to work here. To be honest, business travel and work are hard to define the lines in between. Bear in mind that if you visit the US to mentor or to have meetings, it's okay. If you visit the US and roll up the sleeves or in the kitchen or at the cashier, it's work. The ESTA and B1 or B2 visa does not apply. Previously, we defined work. Then, when do we need a work visa? For work visa, is our advice. You send someone who work on the front lines. It's better for you to consider applying for a work visa. Don't wait until it's too late. Why? Just like what we just said, like insurance laws and regulations require time and plan in advance. Visa is not something you want for tomorrow, and you can apply it for today. Especially we Taiwanese will visit the Southeast Asia countries. Quite convenient it is. I often go to there for work. It's usually very quick to have it, but it's not the case here with the U.S. It's necessary to understand your short-term, mid-term, long-term plans to send somebody from Taiwan or other countries. All right? We often see the process that the UHQ may use ESTA to send a few to survey the market in the US to determine the location for expansion. Meanwhile, they will also have a handful of elites as vanguards. These vanguards may enter the border with ESTA still, and they will also have to roll out the sleeves on the ground. And the company established here, more talents will be brought in for operation expansion in the long run. My advice is best for the vanguards to have work visa. Here's why. Remember the instance I gave? Frequent traveling employees with ISTA got caught by the immigrations, and as a result, the company is blacklisted, and it's hard for them to get visa from either AIT or US here. So try not to start first and apply later. Plan early and get visa legally will do you good. Many HQ will ask, how many people can I bring to the US for business? Can I get a whole crew here? The laws don't demand how many people you hire in the US to get the quota. No, it's based on a reasonable need for this decision. So, at the beginning, for the vanguards we mentioned, it's possibly 5 people at best. Moving forward, your expansion here in the US are wider, so it's reasonable for you to have more professionals like those skilled in bread, bakery, Western desserts, or the white collars, executives like the CFO from Taiwan. As you expand more and more, you need will be clearer. It's easier for us to get the visa for you. All right. For these expatriates, how long can they stay? I like to cite an example. A German company had an employee here. He has been having the work visa for over 40 years. He didn't want a green card. The company was willing to give him one, but he didn't want it. So it tells you that whether the business needs or persists, it's necessary. The visa can last for a long time. Any national can apply for it? Not necessarily. It's because the Taiwanese companies can easily bring along Taiwanese employees to the U.S. However, if a Taiwanese company's regional HQ in the Philippines want to bring a Filipino executives to the U.S., it might require a different visa that is harder to get. As we mentioned earlier, the short, mid, and long-term plans will help the HQ to check who they want to send. In light of their backgrounds, we can have a better arrangement earlier for their application. So can you send any employee in any position? Actually, as long as it fits the executive positions or a professional or with certain skills, it's usually yes. So here's the summary. You have to find the right team and localization so you can succeed in the US. Wisdom is knowledge and experience combined. Knowledge is that of law, and experience is that of after service. To so many clients for the areas of expertise in the North America, you have to know maybe a lawyer in Asia or a professional that can cover it at all. But here, it requires rather high level of expertise. You may have issues and get into trouble. So many professionals here are specialists in certain areas only. So here's my advice. If you are searching for a team, it's better to avoid to have the one knows it all. It may lead to problems, so be careful. In addition, you need to know more about the resources available here. We have lots of Taiwanese in the U.S. There are many business people with experiences and achievements as well. Individuals in business and or with achievements. For example, we have regional Taiwan chambers of commerce, like Orange County. We have Taiwanese Chamber of Commerce of Orange County or Taiwanese Chamber of Commerce of North America. We have so many resources here, potential franchisees here, or regional agents. So I think besides government agencies and our organizer here today, we can learn more about the local resources available there for you to better succeed in the U.S. All right. Again, thanks for your time. And as I said at the start, I hope your brand can enter the US successfully so we can enjoy the delicacy here and see you here for expansion. Here's my contact on the screen, Line, Facebook, or scan the QR code to learn more about the firm. Anyways, I expect your brands to know there are so many overseas Taiwanese here in the US. There are love Taiwan and support Taiwanese. So come to USA fast. Thank you. Thanks for Attorney Chen's sharing on the laws for business IPs, labor, immigration, and insurance. In addition, the application process required by the U.S. takes longer. And please evaluate in advance and save time for it. Next speaker is CEO of Ye and Associates, Mr. Kevin Ye, to share on frequently asked questions about the business accounting and taxes in the U.S. Ye and Association is formed by accountants and team of tax agents. CEO Ye is about to share with us the tax costs for business in the U.S., the types of entities, the process for it, And hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Ye, the certified public accountant in California, USA. It's a pleasure to talk with you how to expand your franchise business in the US here. Basically, lots of people come into US to set up entity here. The important factor include cost consideration. Coming to the U.S. for business, it's great to earn money. However, the costs in tax are a focus many people care about. Of course, we talk not just about the taxes, but also the entities for you to choose to go with. The topic of the day is mainly the frequently asked questions about the business accounting and taxes in the US. There are 4 parts. The first is which entity should I go with in the US? The second is after establishment, how could we plan for our tax costs? Also, after the tax planning, how we can file our taxes, how can we prepare for that? And finally, if you can run a business in the US, do you need to plan for the franchise business blueprint? The first for you here in the US is how you can choose the entity. There are many entities available here, and when choosing that, you can see there are 5 choices on the chart. The ones in red are not recommended, like the sole proprietorship. It's for sole entrepreneurs, and there is partnership, and there are small companies like LLC and C corporation. So let's check the differences for each entity established in the US. So many people would go for a sole proprietorship or partnership. It's basically for single entrepreneurs or for the partnership enterprise. It's the easiest one and the riskiest one. Why? Basically, you run the business solely with all the debts and risks tied to yourself. You have limitless liability. And of course, in the US, if you are self-employed, you have 2 roles, employer and employee. With this, if you have to pay the SE tax, it's 15.3% for the tax. If you're in a partnership with more than 1 person, it's a partnership company. If any of the partners are foreign national, you have to take into account the withholding process. What we're concerned is that these entities are easy for you to establish, but no sustainability in it. And in terms of capital source, if you want capital increase or what, it's more limited. So not recommended for anyone to establish either for a franchise business expansion here. The common practice is a limited liability company or LLC. Any benefit? Yes. The first is it's a limited liability. The second is it's a pass-through entity. So what's that? Pass-through entity is basically have no corporate tax. It's passed through to the individual taxes. So I just pay single tax, essentially resolve the double taxation issue. The organization and management are also flexible. So through the LLC agreement, it allows free allocation that is relatively flexible. And also tax form for LLC can be form 1065, or for individual, you can also set up an individual LLC. It may not be Schedule C for business operation or rental business. That's Schedule E. So LLC comes with these benefits. What about the drawbacks? If you have a member on the LLC that is a foreign citizen, tax withholdings will still apply. It's to avoid any avoidance in tax paying or fine. Do we also have to care about the 15.3% SC tax for employer and employee combined? Yes. It's often criticized for the LLC fees. Many people thought that I only have to pay tax when I earn money, but LLC with all the merits, there's a big drawback. Some states care as long as you reach a certain amount of sales, you have to pay the LLC fees to score you're losing or earning money. So basically, you have to pay more fees. And sometimes, if you can make it, if all the shareholders are U.S. citizens, you may want to consider the entity designed for American residents as corporation. It's the same. First, it's a limited liability. It's also a pass-through entity. No issue of double taxation. You just need to pay the individual taxes, and if you pay yourself, the shareholders, a reasonable salary, besides your wages, you can share your dividends. There's no SE tax on the dividends. If you pay salaries, you've had the taxes for employer and employee covered. Also, the tax form here is 1120S. With all the merits, any drawback? The drawback is that it's not easy for anyone to choose the S corporation. The number of shareholders is limited, no more than 100 persons. And second, no legal person allowed. No alien is allowed in the shareholders of S corporation, and there's only one class of stock because it provides single taxation for U.S. citizens. Hence, there are more benefits as well as limits. That's the drawbacks. It's possible for that our shareholder, Taiwanese company, or investors, or non-U.S. citizens. Another option can be the normal C corporation. That is the normal company, basically an entity with limited liability as well. Its protection for you is the same with S corporation. This is better in that it's easier to secure funding, and there's no limit as to no foreign company as shareholders or alien as the investors. Its structure is convenient as well for a future IPO. The company is also sustainable. The tax form is 1120. Normally, it's the entity people would go with to set up companies in the U.S. But also there are some drawbacks. Basically, because of the legal people, there's tax on the corporate level, and for the shareholder dividends, there's another tax called dividend tax. So the common issue is double taxation. Also, a huge corporation will have higher costs in administration and management. And so, in a nutshell, the three entities here: one is LLC, second S corporation, the third C corporation. For personal protection, the three are the same with limited liability. The second can allow foreign owners. The one with a cross is S corporation that allows only natural persons and U.S. residents. Multiple classes of stocks, not for S corporation. The other two are allowed. Multiple member restrictions, also yes for S corporation. Again, the other two, no number limit. You can have many shareholders. And the double taxation, C corporation is the only one with that. LLC and S corporation only have taxation on one level, so the tax costs is higher. The three entities have separate state and federal tax filings. Can be owned by other entities, again, not for S corporation, with most limits, whereas not for the other two. They can have either shareholders as well. So now we have a better understanding about the types of entities. We then can talk about the tax costs we have. Many people say, do we only have to pay the income tax? No, we only have sales. We also have sales tax, payroll tax, and other taxes. This chapter is to share with you the common taxes in the U.S. First, the federal government collects from various sources. The majority here on the chart is the individual income taxes. The other is the payroll tax, which we will dive in later, like the Social Security tax or the Medicare tax. For corporate taxes, it's relatively smaller on the chart. So there's also custom duties among other taxes shown on the chart. The US collects mostly from the individual income taxes that contribute more. Of course, the entity we choose has the issue of double taxation. Why is that? Only C Corporation has double taxation. C Corporation on the entity level, the US collects at the rate of 21%. On the individual level, there are taxes for various incomes. If you are not C Corporation, it's passed through to the individual. You may only pay up to 37%, 0 to 37% actually. For individual income tax, for dividends or long-term capital gain tax, it's up to 20%. There's also 3.8% of net investment income tax. It's just like Taiwan's second-generation health insurance tax in the US. It's the supplementary health insurance tax with 3.8%. For qualified business income, the new tax regulation offers a 20% reduction as well. So if you are a normal company, the company pays the taxes, but in sharing dividends, you have to pay another tax. So no double taxation. Other entities care about only individual income taxes. C only pay additional fees. For first, we'll talk about the income tax. Companies will file taxes once a year. If you are an American company that invests in somebody else, the worldwide incomes are just like the normal Americans. Entities have to file their worldwide incomes. If you invest in the US, it's usually to file the income taxes incurred in the US and pay the taxes. For this chart here, what we introduced was just the federal taxes. Besides the federal government, if you set up a company in each state, you will also have state taxes. If we establish a C corporation, we can see the one with the darkest tone. It means it has a higher state tax rate, just like California's 8.84% and Pennsylvania, Illinois, the state with darker colors for your restaurants. And there are some taxes like states without taxes like Washington, Nevada, South Dakota, Wyoming. These states are visible here without state taxes are also good options in terms of tax costs. Of course, on the sales tax, that's the second tax for us to run a business here. But this tax is basically collected for the government. Sales tax is collected for the government. It means that if I sell something at $10, like in California, I have to collect the sales tax for the government at 8.68%. You just collect the sales tax for the government. So starting from 2021, the darker green means that the state with higher state sales tax. So again, we can see California's sales tax is higher, and New York and Eastern America are higher as well. In the central region like Illinois, also have a higher sales tax. So again, it's collected for the government. So we'll have to, for local residents, they'll have to pay more in their living expenses. That's just for your reference to know the collection for the government. For a company hiring employees will have Medicare costs or the UI claims. The table is for you to see what payroll taxes employers have to pay, and payroll taxes for employees both have Social Security tax and Medicare tax, and then employer have to pay FUTA for the federal and SUTA for the state government. The employers have to pay additionally. There's also application local taxes for employers. For employees, they just need to withhold their federal and state taxes. Basically, they pay for the deficit and get refund for the extra overcharge. And there are also applicable local taxes for employees too. If we put it into a chart, we can see that as an employee on the left, it's basically withheld the amount based on your income. The same for the federal, state, or local income taxes that's paid by employees. Then employers have to take care of the employment claims, including the tax for federal states, employment taxes. Both parties, however, share the payment for first the Social Security tax and federal Medicare tax, and that's mandatory disability insurance. And as an employer, you have to think about withholding for Social Security tax and employment taxes. And the last one for the tax costs is other taxes. In many states, it's called 571L. That is based on your property, including the company's equipment, furniture, computers. There's certain amount of tax for that. It's smaller, but of course, in some states, you will also apply to inventory for you to pay taxes for it. So when we see the chart, the ones that applies to inventory are like Texas or Kentucky. They will collect taxes on inventory. States like Georgia are in light yellow are partially apply to inventory, and states that only apply to property account for the majority in blue, like California. It's basically 1% to 2% property tax for on a yearly basis. Of course, depreciation is taken into account. The value will be diminished yearly. After the tax is required, we then can see the tax filing SOP. First, through the year, there are 4 stages. First is your counting. That's your bookkeeping. In the middle of the year, you will talk with your accountant or a financial accountant on the tax planning, and you may produce monthly, quarterly, or yearly report, but basically accountant will advise you to prepare semi-annual reports so that you can see in the middle of the year that if you have make a lot of money, you have to plan for your tax and reduce your tax costs. So if you have a financial statement and finally tax filing, so based on your accounting, financial statement and planning, we'll finish the tax filing SOP. So next, we'd like to talk about if we want to expand our franchise business into the U.S. Franchise is a system adopted in the U.S. for years. There are numerous regulations. As the franchisee, they will be collected all sorts of franchise fees. So they want some stability so as to keep franchisees safe. Hence, there are many regulations. So for this part, for franchise developers, you have to have basic understanding on the U.S. If you HQ want to enter the U.S. market, you have to meet these requirements, including the company registration, investment amount criteria, and trademark registration, and also have your audited financial reports. It's because you have to be responsible to your franchisees for them to know the financial aspect and how the franchise fees collected. And there's also franchise disclosure document or FDD. If you when your franchise execute enter the US, you should prepare and plan for, of course, the franchise disclosure document. It's a crucial key to the US market. So there are relevant lawyers who help franchise brand owners to prepare this to ensure the company's legal rights. And of course, it's basically to prepare 23 relevant documents. We won't go through them all, just for you to have a look, including the franchisor. That's the background of franchisees, of the business, and their business experience and history of litigation, record of bankruptcy, initial fees, and other fees, investment amount, restriction on the source of products and services. If you have many franchisees, do you have any obligation for them? What's your financial mean? And your own obligations, the territory, trademarks, obligations of yours in the actual operations, the restriction on goods and services. Basically, you have to specify all of them. There are also disputes in that you should put in the documents. If you use any public figures or any your financial performance representations, for example, there require 23 documents. And of course, as accountant, we talk with our franchisors on the financial statements each year. They'll have other contracts, leads, and so on. You just remember for how to open more F&B franchise stores or franchise business in the US. That's something you should prepare. Of course, this is a chart of USA for you. Basically, it shows you the brand with the most franchise stores in each state. Take California, for example, it's McDonald's. And there are some states with KFC and other with Burger King or with pizza brand. The chart is to show you there are so many franchise establishments in the US market. As you can see, it's obviously a business with a long history. And this map is for you to see it's not just food or beverage. There are also some states with accommodation brand or cleaning services or other businesses. So each state is different. It's just for you to refer to that. Each state has their own industry with regard to franchise industries. So we mentioned about FTD. Some states requires franchise registration. The one with tighter regulations are in orange. And for other states, the blue ones requires only filing. And these states care more about consumer protection, of course. We've introduced the 4 parts, and you can also follow us. And so we can exchange over these platforms regarding the relevant information here. And it's a pleasure to share with you franchise business expansion in the US. So thank you. Thanks for CEO for us to learn about the pros and cons of entities, tax costs, and tax filing SOP in the US. Thanks again for all the speakers. We have many questions raised by audience. Hence, we have invited 2 in-brand speakers to answer these questions. First question goes to Vice President of HAPPYLEMON. What are the differences between the Eastern and Western US markets? In fact, the US is huge. Like Taiwan, there are dietary preferences are varied from North Taiwan to South Taiwan. It's the same in the US. So it's up to which target market you have. So it's not just the difference between the East and the West, but within the state, in a certain region in the state, it might be the area of certain group. So the taste would be different. The key is to find the position for your product. Also, how can an F&B brand step out to Taiwan? And what's the first step? The first step is to gather intelligence on the overseas markets, especially for the market that you want to step your first step in. It's the market you should pay most effort to learn about it. Taiwanese have many delicacies. Many delicacies come from Taiwan. However, when our food goes out, how can we promote it in the local market? And requires a local partner that has in-depth knowledge in the local market. So, and earlier, when our Happy Lemon went out, we used to find Chinese to open our stores, and they are first generation of immigrants. They prefer to open stores conservatively in the areas of Chinese communities. So there will be a gap from localization. After the lesson learned, we look for overseas partners that individuals from the mainstream society locally among the mainstream population, particularly they have to have a background in F&B business. And they are more familiar with the operation. The second, they are more familiar with the dietary culture and consumer behavior there, so that they promote the business out there. They will have a higher potential compared to the ones that are not familiar with it. And have you thought about introducing wheel cake to your store to boost further your revenues? Actually, we did. Our first store that introduced wheel cake is in Dubai, but the result was not so much. We realized that something popular in Taiwan is not necessarily popular elsewhere. It's up to the food. It's something familiar to the overseas markets. Many overseas consumers are not so brave and daring to try something new. Many of them are still conservative, hesitant in the face of new things. Also, the equipment for a wheel cake is quite a local stuff. It's quite common in Japan and Taiwan, yet the equipment is shipped out. If it's to the Southeast Asia, that should be okay. But for US and Europe, there will be electronic certification like the US or EU requires UL certification, and the stainless steel in contact with the food it requires an SF certification, and certification is costly. And unless the equipment is in volume, the certification will be cost effective. Otherwise, the smaller amount, the certification will drive the costs for the brand in relevant promotion. So to promote an emerging product, we have to conduct market survey first to check whether the product is in line with the dietary culture or the consumer behavior, or if the electronics is in comply with the local regulatory requirements. If not, it will create various barriers to the brand. Under the COVID-19 impact, is there any concrete value measures for F&B expansion worldwide? For Taiwanese F&B brands, we have to bear in mind that we used to talk about globalization a lot and about global supply chains. Facing the COVID-19, countries are under lockdown. Tensions are even seen between countries. There are risks of discontinued supply chain as well, or trading among countries is reduced than they used to be. So the process of will be withdrawing from globalization to ever-growing localization. That's something I see in the future. It's not that globalization will disappear, but the ratio of globalization will be less. All countries are rising up and realizing that they need to support local industries, and there are barriers due to the COVID-19 between countries, which also boost the growth of local supply chains. As for the supply chain of Boba tea, the majority is in Taiwan and Southeast Asia. We also believe that in the future, with the growth of US and EU markets, there will be needs for supply chains locally to set up factories locally in US. Even for a local factory, food factories in the US start to see the blue sea, they will start to serve as the food ingredient suppliers to supply ingredients for the tea market. I believe that's a future trend. As far as the brands are concerned, we have to recognize that to go is a future trend, and also that the online platform and e-order system over the handheld device and the trend of to-go seats over the clouds, sales over the clouds. In addition, in response to COVID-19, restaurants cannot receive guests. There will be cloud kitchen, and this kind of experiment kitchen will be future trends, and the traditional stores will persist, but the emerging sales model will be continue to being a rise up. Finally, the bestsellers for Happy Lemon in the U.S. Tea is of course, our main products and Americans' consumer diet culture. In the US, we also have some snacks to go with beverage. We tried hard to develop snacks actually. The wheel cake we tried, but it's not that successful. So we did a lot of market survey. We found that they prefer waffles, and our egg waffles here in Taiwan is similar on the outside. So we thought the beverage in promotion would be relatively lower. So we sell egg waffles in the US, and of course the recipe and ingredients were customized. So the texture is a bit different from the egg waffles of the Chinese. It's closer to waffle actually, but the texture, fragrance, and the shape and are different from waffles. So it's quite distinctive on the market there, and it's not too strange, however, to the local consumer as well. So it became our bestseller as such. That's our experience. Thanks, Vice President, for answering the questions. Next, we like to direct questions to Chairman Tseng of Mr. Wish. The first question is, what is the bestseller of Mr. Wish in the U.S.? At present, in New York, Philadelphia, our bestseller is still our fruit tea. Yellow fruit tea. It's not just popular among the Asians, but the foreigners as well. So it's like our signature product. Besides our signature fruit tea, pearl milk tea is also quite popular. So the two products are our best sellers. Next, we are the biggest advantage. What are the biggest advantage and challenges for Taiwanese brands to enter the U.S. market? Okay, the biggest advantage is beverage industry in the U.S. is still a blank space to fill. The Asians, Chinese. They love it. So our pearl milk tea is well received in Asia, but in the U.S., the beverage are mainly soda drinks, coffee, and juice. So that's our biggest advantage. It's a market with less competition. As for the biggest challenge, the Caucasians are the majority, however, and how to get the Caucasians to promptly embrace our industry. That's our biggest challenge. Only when they accept it, like it, and buy our beverage can we thrive in the US. That's the biggest challenge for us. The question is, how can beverage brands expand in the U.S. markets? How do you select the city to expand into? Selecting to expand into? It's basically Eastern and Western U.S. The major cities in Eastern U.S. are New York, Philadelphia, Washington, and in the Western, there are California, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. And these cities come with different features. First is to check your own features, if they fit which cities to develop. There are different races and different consumption levels. What's the price range of your products, and suitable for whichever cities. These are the aspects you should look into at the first place. Next, how to find quality franchise agents. How many stores are required for agents to open in a year? For this question, the US is huge. If you see it by city, you need to meet with the partners frequently. It will involve how much capital you should prepare. Do you want to use regular chain store or franchise model to develop the whole US or the eastern US or a certain city? So city-wise in New York, will your brand open 3 or 5 stores? That's something you should formulate in the strategy meeting when you have all the strategies in place. The total number of stores in each city will be the total number of your stores you develop in the US. It's of course about time. How long do I spend on developing these cities? The more powerful your agent is, like a F&B group, perhaps it may be faster to attain our goals. Of course, it may be confident to open 20 to 50 stores a year, yet your partner or agent is still limited in ability. It's likely you can't set your goal this high because its development will be relatively slower. So your choice of agents is absolutely tied to the partnership that follows. If you want to develop in the US, based on your experience, which ingredients are recommended to be purchased locally? The ingredients to be purchased locally need to be fresh. Hard to import from Taiwan, like milk, fruits, and those hard to transport. So we can just purchase them locally. Of course, the secret recipe or formula unique to your brand, these are something definitely imported directly from Taiwan. Lastly, what's the potential of fried food in the US market? Fried food in the US is actually quite popular. It's one of their main dishes, like fried chicken. So it's a pity to see a few Taiwanese brands to develop fried chicken in the US. However, the Americans, besides pizza and burgers, they love fried chicken, Coke, French fries, bagels, and donuts. These are their main dishes. As long as our tastes are slightly different than those in the US, yet loved by them, I think it has a huge potential to develop in US. Thanks for Chairman Tseng's sharing. Finally, we'd like to invite audience to fill out the questionnaire of our event. To share your valuable feedbacks, we'll send out our landscape reports, regulation, and counting to anyone that submits their questionnaire. For more information, please refer to the description below. This year, the Taiwanese French fries brand online trade meeting for North America is now available with 12 quality Taiwanese companies. Buyers from the US and Canada are welcome to sign up online for one-on-one trade meetings with the brands. For Taiwanese F&B franchise brands with needs to expand overseas, you are welcome to reach us or fill out the questionnaire to leave your information and needs. We'll be assisting you. Look forward to our next meeting. Bye-bye.